fresh off his Korean Baseball League debut, Coen Wynne joins us now. Just picked up his first win with the LG Twins. Hello from Korea. Well, you're in Korea. We're in Australia. Thanks for joining us, Coen.
Thank you so much for having me, guys.
Coen, that was awesome. Like, I was just kind of reflecting on this. At Christmas, I was watching you pitch on a Thursday night in December in Adelaide in front of like 800 people in the Australian Baseball League. And on Sunday, I was watching a Korean broadcast of you pitching in front of 23,750 people on the nose. Now, there's no annoying guy chanting, "Here we go, Giants, here we go," in the middle of your windup. But was the atmosphere as good as it kind of looked on TV when you were out there in the middle of that cauldron? Could you take that in?
Yeah, so I think, usually I'm pretty good at kind of drowning out noise and kind of just being able to lock in. But when when I'm pitching, the away fans are all cheering for their hitters. So like the pitcher never really gets a chant for the pitcher. It's always the opposing team's hitters. And with the SSG landers being just 50 minutes an hour away in Incheon, where the airport is, a lot of them flocked over to Seoul to watch the game. And so it was really cool, and like usually being able to just kind of lock in and put it off, but that was definitely the hardest thing to kind of just drown out. But it's really, really cool. And then obviously coming off after the innings, LG Twins fans start cheering, and that's the better part.
Which is kind of weird, right? Because in Australia, we don't get that cheering. Even when stadiums are full, it's just a different cheering baseball culture. It's more like the US style. And in Australia, it gets quiet, right? Like before you're delivering that huge pitch in that big moment. Here, there's singing, there's chanting. And if you're a Korean player, you're probably used to it growing up. It's what you see, it's what you expect, it's what you feel. The culture shock of just the noise in my own mind, and I'm completely projecting here, must have been something else.
I think, being lucky enough to play with the Australian team at these big tournaments, like in the Tokyo Dome, being there against Samurai Japan for the WBC, playing against Samurai Japan in the Premier 12, you kind of get a pretty good understanding of what it's going to be like. But every time you're out there, nothing really prepares you for it. You can know what it's going to happen, but every time it's going to be different. It's going to be whelming, not overwhelming, but just whelming.
Whelming, nice whelm level.
Yeah, that's like when we had Michael Clare on, and you told him to give us an Antarctic player, and he gave us an Arctica player as opposed from Antarctica. It's whelming. That's what I was going to ask you, Coen. Though, like in all seriousness, getting to have those experiences in international play and playing in Asia, you said that it was strange, but I assume going into it, you sort of knew that it was going to be that way. Obviously, it was going to get very quiet while you were pitching, very loud while the LG Twins were hitting, chanting for the hitters. Do you feel like, in all honesty, that having that international experience helped you through that, knowing sort of what to expect as opposed to going in and not really having any idea?
Yeah, I think definitely having that experience definitely prepares you for it, and like gives you a pretty good heads up of what's about to happen. I think also, luckily, I pitched in the third game of the series, so I got to watch two games beforehand, two night games beforehand. So the night games get pretty rowdy, especially on a Friday night. So really lucky to be able to watch some of the other guys go first and kind of dip my toe in to really understand what it's going to be like, and then go out there and do it myself on Sunday.
Yeah, it's nothing like a Sunday afternoon to ease you into the KBO, I guess, right?
Yeah, right. Nothing like a Sunday.
Do you have a song yet, Coen?
I don't have a Korean song yet. No, they for the first time when I was just walking out, they were all just chanting my name while I was so.
That's still pretty cool, but how does one earn a Korean song?
I'm not too sure yet. I know first baseman, American import Austin Dean, has a really catchy song, and the fans love to sing his song. So like even when I was back in Australia watching away games, you can hear the LG fans, away fans, singing the song, and it's coming over, drowning out the commentators on the call. It was really, really cool.
I can't wait until you get that song. What's the media presence like there? Like, can you walk me through? I mean, I've never been to Korea before. I've been to Japan, and I know that they love to talk about baseball all the time. What's the media presence like around baseball in Korea?
Yeah, it's pretty full on. I think technically it's not the national sport here, but it's definitely the most attended sport. I think last year they had over 10 million people flood through the gates. For 144 games, and the biggest stadium seats 23,000. Like on average, every team's getting 1 million people through the gates, which is through 70 home games, which is pretty full on. And then obviously because they have such a small league in terms of 10 teams compared to the US's 30. So like there's 5 games a night. Every single one of them is on TV to be viewed on just normal Korean television. Every single one of them is streamed through the Super Global app. So anyone from around the world can go through and watch all 5 games on at the exact same time throughout the whole country. And then, there's 5 different, there's KBSN Sports, Spo TV, Spo TV2, and a couple others that kind of all program these and display these games on TV. And then associated with that is a bunch of different, I think it's called the KBWA, the Korean Baseball Writers Association. And so there's a flock of those guys at every game. It's really cool, and it's a real good spectacle, and it's done really professionally.
I'm actually shocked to find out that baseball is not the national sport of Korea. Eric, you want to take a guess at what the Korean national sport is? No cheating if you've already Googled.
I'm gonna say soccer.
Incorrect. It's taekwondo.
What? Yeah,
taekwondo. Really?
That
is taekwondo
Korean? It's wild to think that baseball being so popular in Korea. I mean, we think about how popular it is in other Asian countries like Japan and Taiwan, obviously being the national sport there, but yet to not be the national sport in Korea is somewhat surprising, actually.
Yeah, it's interesting that it's not the national sport, but it's still the most highly attended sport.
Yeah.
But yeah, the big 3 in Korea: soccer, taekwondo, and baseball. The baseball stadium where we in Jamsil, where we share with the Doosan Bears, maybe 200 meters away is the Olympic soccer stadium, which they're doing a bit of a renovation piece on that. I think in 2 years' time, the Bears and the Twins will be playing in the Olympic Stadium while they convert the current stadium into a dome. And so I think it's 2 years' time, and then 5 years from then they'll be back in the new dome in Seoul.
Well, I've been doing my best crack at trying to learn about Korean baseball. Talked about it with Spoon in the last pod. Hopefully you learned a little bit from that, Andrew Reynolds.
I did,
but
yes.
one thing that
very informative.
That struck me, very informative. Well, for me, the biggest, coolest thing was actually that before COVID, teams were averaging about 10, 11,000 people per game. This year, they're up to 17,000 people per game in the Korean baseball organization, the KBO. And the team you play for, the LG Twins, is making headlines because you're selling out every single game. And people that are tourists that are trying to get tickets to go to the games can't get tickets because everybody's going to these games. I mean, you've been in the Korean baseball scene for a couple weeks now, so it's not like we have a great reference point, I suppose, but you've been around it more than us. Do you know what is sparking this renewed interest in making Korean baseball more popular than it's ever been before? I think we can actually say that.
To be honest, it's not something I can quite put like a finger on the pulse. I know LG do a great job with them, not only the marketing, but also like the social media, and they have their own YouTube team that takes care of just the YouTube channel. And they do a great job of like putting out like not only like daily interviews, but like things like get to know the players and like some behind the scenes stuff. And they do a really good job. And the YouTube team here at LG are amazing, and like they get along well with the players. So it's not like intrusive. It's fun. It's fresh. And I think they just do a good job of like catching on trends and being current and really pushing a market towards like the adolescents. So I think that really, really helps. And I think that's kind of pushing, because obviously if you can, and you've got kids pestering you and you take them to the game the one time. I think, funnily enough, I saw this thing about psychology. It's like the first time, the second time, like you just got to do everything you can to get them through the third time. And if you get a patron through the third time, they're there forever.
Interesting.
So yeah,
it's like the
some ABL lessons for us.
Yeah, it's like the 7 stages of marketing or whatever it is. I know, Coen, I know Eric wants to just touch on a few things in the KBO before we talk about how you ended up getting there. But one thing that we've touched on a few times in the last maybe month or so is kind of this rise and fall of the Korean national team in the fact that they were, sort of an international powerhouse. And let's face it, the last two major international tournaments, the World Baseball Classic and the Premier 12, they haven't necessarily performed up to what their standard would be. So there seems to be kind of this aura, particularly in the Premier 12 last year. They really put a young team together with the sense of, hey, we're looking forward to the next World Baseball Classic. Do you get a sense of any of that in Korea at the moment? Is maybe some of that renewed pride in Korean baseball that, like, okay, we've reset. Maybe we had a rough competition cycle, but things are really starting to pick up. Do you get a sense of any of that? I know it's maybe an unfair question because you haven't been there for too long, but is there any sort of sense of maybe that rejuvenated essence of baseball in Korea is because of, okay, we're investing in our youth. We're really going to try and have a crack now at this next competition cycle and potentially take home a trophy at a world championship?
Yeah, I think, like you said, definitely the Classic didn't go the way that the Korean national team wanted it to go. And part of that is definitely to the Aussies. What a game that was, and a performance from the boys. But they definitely used the Prem 12 to kind of blood some young guys and understand that sometimes it's not always about going out there and performing, but like getting the guys the first go at the national team and going out there and being a part of it for the first time and understanding what it's like and looking towards the future, kind of moving along some of the stalwarts and bringing in some young blood. And I believe there was two of my teammates were on the team. Moonbo is our third baseman. He was there, and then Im Cheng Yu, who's our pitching captain, our ace, and he was on the team as well. So he ended up pitching against the Dominican, I think. So like those guys who are Mooney's definitely younger. Im Cheng Yu's been there for a while, but he's by no means one of the older, more veteran guys. He's definitely a veteran in the KBO and our best domestic pitcher, but he's still got plenty of years left in him.
Yeah, that third baseman of yours helped your stat line a little bit on the weekend, Coen. I mean, you had a great line. I mean, six innings, allowing just 5 hits and 3 runs was great, but probably could have been a hit or two more if it weren't for a couple incredible plays over at third. He looks like he's fun to have behind you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I think our left side of the infield is amazing. Between Mooney, who's our third baseman, making diving plays and charging plays and everything in between, and a 17-year-old veteran of the league, OG Wan, our shortstop, just making any play that looks like he could get near it is an out. I'm very, very lucky to have such a great defense behind me and working for me, because those guys are great, really, really cool, and really my game plan. And I think those who know me know I'm not going to go out there and be like dominant and have 10 strikeouts at the ABL or at any international level. I'm going to go out there, I'm going to throw sinkers, I'm going to throw split fingers, I'm going to throw curveballs, I'm going to get you to roll over. So having those guys behind me really plays into my strengths, and it's really reassuring knowing that I've got such a good defense.
So how are you, I guess, feeling going into that first start? I kind of want to peek behind the lens, because if you look at the context of it, right, LG are fighting for first place. They've had one of their imports go down. You signed an import replacement contract. That's the contract that you're on. So I want more details on that. We'll get to that later. But, you come in there. It's a sold-out stadium. You're fighting first place. It's against a local rival, and you have to start this game. So, I mean, I'm saying all these things, building it up, but you've already started this game. You're through it. What were you feeling before the game? Did you feel pressure? Like, what walk me through that kind of side of things.
I think, the night before watching Im Cheng Yu, the ace, kind of go, we have pretty similar stuff. Both of us aren't strikeout guys. Both of us have some pretty great command and some good off-speed pitches. Charting down what he's doing and really just working on a game plan of what he did and what succeeded, how he threw these guys and what the catcher was calling. So that kind of helped ease the nerves a little bit, having a pretty good game plan. But then, it doesn't matter, because the next morning you wake up and your stomach's in knots, knowing that I'm about to make my debut in the KBO. And I've got, being someone who has a lot of experience in relief and a fair bit of experience starting, when I'm a reliever, there's no nerves, there's no pressure. It's, I'm just doing my thing. I'm doing my routine. When my name gets called, I don't have time to think about anything. I don't have time to get nervous. It's just go time when my name gets called. when I'm starting and it's like I have all day to think about it, sometimes you can get in your own head a little bit. But as soon as you get to the field or you call home with family and you're around the teammates or you're calling people, it's the nerves settle. You have that security blanket from family back home or the 30 guys in the locker room with you. But then
Because no, oh, I was just gonna say because in that first inning you gave up a home run, and then after that you settled down right away. Like you were getting some ground balls. I think it was like a couple shallow fly balls, a couple ground ball outs, and then you had a couple strikeouts to end the third inning. Got a couple first outs in the fourth inning as well. It was a stretch of 8 or 9 guys. I don't know the exact number in a row that you sat down, and all of them were kind of soft contact or strikeouts. So it looked like kind of the Coen Wynne that we saw in the ABL. Like that was just sort of normal Coen Wynne viewing experience for us. But did you have something in your mind that you kind of switched after that home run that settled the nerves a little bit?
Yeah, I think definitely giving up. I mean, the guy who hit the home run is the all-time KBO home run leader. So
Cool.
I was talking to a couple of the interviewers after the game. I said he's hit plenty of home runs before me. He's gonna hit plenty of home runs after me. Like, oddly enough, it did settle me down. Going out there and just kind of being like, oh, like I whispered to myself after he hit it. I said, "Welcome to the KBO," because it was a smoke shot, right? He didn't miss it. Great swing. Like tip cap to him. He's a great player. But I think that kind of did settle me down and take all expectations away from anything. Like like the egg's been cracked. I'm doing it. I've given up my first run. Nothing really matters. Just go out there and do my best to help the team. And then in the bottom of the first inning, we put up a fast spot with back-to-back a grand slam and then a back-to-back single homer from the catcher. It just all the pressure that was there after the first home run when I was pitching got taken away, and then so much energy and life got brought back into me after the 5 spot. So I think it just made a really comfortable pitching situation for me to go out there and work.
It feels like we could do an entire podcast on the psychology of pitching. What's that reminds me of, completely out of left field, pardon the pun, is Rory McIlroy's final round in the Masters when he like double bogeyed the third. And then he was like, I was comfortable after that. It's like, what? What are you talking about? Of course, me, not a professional athlete, it's impossible for me to understand that. But Coen, that's what you're saying. It's almost like, look, I'm so afraid to fail. I go out and I fail early. And it's like, oh, right, I've been doing this my entire life. That guy's the all-time KBO home runs leader. Let it go, settle in, and that's exactly what you did.
Yeah, I think, funnily enough, one of the experiences that always comes back to me when I get nervous is when I came in at the Classic and I walked the first batter on 4 or 5 pitches, whatever it was. And Jim Bennett and Robbie Perkins come out. And Perker said to me, it's just baseball. You've done it 1,000 times. You'll do it another 1,000 times. Like nothing is different. Take every situation away. You're just making pitches. And that anytime I get nervous, that's kind of what I go to. And I think about that. It's, like Perker said, I've done it 1,000 times. I'm going to do it 1,000 more times. It's the same thing, no matter where you are, no matter who you're facing. It's a thing I know how to do. It's a thing I've done a million times. It's muscle memory now. It's like, don't make the situation bigger than it is.
I think one of the interesting things about you, Coen, is now this is kind of a trend, right? So if you fast track, if you go backwards towards that WBC, now you weren't on the initial roster. You were one of the injury replacement players or whatever the designation is. Australia goes to Fuchu. They have a 2-week training camp where the entire team is there playing exhibition games, forming as a team. Then they go and play Korea and beat Korea in the biggest game. Meanwhile, you get a phone call and you're not even, I think you were watching the game at the airport. Like you were in the air while Australia was playing Korea, and you have to show up and they're like, Coen, you're probably going to throw against China. And you had a huge performance versus China. That's what you were just talking about. Same situation here where you weren't on the initial roster to start the year with the LG Twins. There's an injury that comes up. You get a phone call and say, hey, Coen, we're going to need you in Korea to pitch here. My point through this whole winded thing is that's now 2 examples where you weren't necessarily on that roster at the start and you've had to come in and be part of the team really, really quickly and then contribute to the team. And now that's 2 examples of your first game after that. You're contributing to the team right away. Is that intimidating, walking into a new environment like that? Maybe something that you weren't part of from the first game? And how do you sort of adjust to appealing yourself to new teammates and humans that you're kind of joining the journey, if that kind of makes sense?
Yeah, I think luckily for myself, especially in terms of the classic, like I had guys that I've known for a while, like Todd Van Sinsel and Luke Wilkins and Josh Geyer, um, and Blake Townsend, and just guys that I've been around and guys that I'm comfortable with. So, and then it's even though playing like that was after my first year in the ABL, so I played against all the other guys, but not really knowing them, especially looking up to guys like TK and guys like Logan Wade and the two Robbies, being like, I know these guys are the real deal. So getting to be teammates with those guys was really, really cool. And then same kind of mirroring, I was really lucky to go to spring training this year with the LG Twins. So I got to meet a lot of the players and a lot of the big league staff and the training staff, and so when I go there, it's just re-meeting guys I'm already comfortable with. And they were really good at reassuring me and making sure that I was comfortable and doing everything that they could to make sure that I felt like I could fit in and I could do my thing. So I'm really lucky that I had those past experiences and those past history with these players on both sides, that I was able to kind of go in there and not feel awkward or feel out of place and feel like I belong.
So you finished up in the ABL this year. You had your best numbers in the ABL. This is your third year here. Every year you've got a little bit better numbers and looking more and more comfortable in the ABL, which is pretty cool. You played NCAA baseball before that. That's sort of the high level journey without going too much into it. Club ball, college ball, ABL, Team Australia mixed in there. Then after the ABL season, how did this opportunity even come about to get to Korea? Like you had a great year with the Sydney Blue Sox, pitcher of the year finalist, all that kind of stuff. How on earth did you end up in Korea?
Yeah. So we got knocked out in the semifinals against Canberra on the Saturday. A little 2-Q piece, which is what happened, and it's fine. On the Monday, it was a public holiday. I think it was Australia Day public holiday, and the team had arranged to go to a pub in Parramatta, have a couple of drinks, and look back on what we did and celebrate our season, because it was an amazing season for the Blue Sox and where we've come from the last 4 or 5 seasons. So just celebrate ourselves and have a good time with each other. Whilst in the car, I was my girlfriend was driving me to the pub, and I basically get a call from an Australian scout who asked for my number to pass on to one of the scouts of the LG Twins. So that day, it kind of all started to kick off whilst I was on the way to the pub and at the pub with the boys, just about how they kind of wanted me to fly me over to spring training, kind of in preparation to see if I could fit in with the team and how I could compete and match levels with the KBO players for 2026 when they open up the Asian quota, basically. But it was talking to the head of the scouting department, JD Kim. He said the reason they did this, and they did it so early, I think they were the only team to kind of invite a potential person to spring training, was because they saw the Oryx Buffalo sign Jared Dale to a minor league deal, and he was going over for spring training. So they said, well, if they can do that and not break the import leagues and break the the import rules in Japan, because Jared Dale gets to go do it, they said, well, there's no reason we can't do it as well. So realistically, the only reason I'm getting any of these opportunities is because Jared Dale got the opportunity to go play for Oryx, which is really cool because, growing up playing against Jared, I think he's a year younger than me, but we're in the same age group. We went on a couple of MLB World Select things together, many different World Cup teams. It's really cool that, it's kind of intertwining stories, and I'm very grateful, and I'm so cool. It's so cool that he's going over there and doing his thing, and he's a great player, defensively, offensively. I remember talking to John Kennedy a couple of years ago in Melbourne, and about how well Melbourne were doing. And I was saying, Jared Dale's hitting in the 6 hole, and he's hitting 315. I said, just when you think like you've gotten through, Greg Bird, Robbie Glendenning, Aaron Whitefield, Darryl George, you think you can take your foot off the gas a little bit, you can take a break. No, you've got Jared Dale hitting 315 coming at you again. And it's like I think for a long time, he's been an underpraised batter and hitter in the league. And I think for a long time, he's also been a known great defender in the league. So I'm really happy for him that he's getting these opportunities.
I think Jared
That is
Dale's
pretty.
the kind of kid, not to pivot, but I think he's the kind of kid that is truly a product of the Australian Baseball League being what it was created to do. He, like, in my mind, is a bit like a Jacob Eunice type, where when Jacob Eunice just kept showing up year after year, and you were like, Jacob Eunice has to be 47 years old, and he's like 28. Jared Dale's 24, and he's played 9 ABL seasons, right? And he's killing it at the minor league level for the Oryx Buffaloes. So it's just a side tangent. But, I mean, yeah, you're 100% right, Con. Like, he's been doing it for years here in the ABL, and it's so good that a guy like him is finally able to get that sort of opportunity. To do it in Japan.
I have a quick one for you. Do you think you and Jared get these opportunities if there is no Australian Baseball League?
I don't think so. I think the Australian Baseball League is definitely the place we've been able to kind of cut our teeth and really find out who we are. I know obviously Jared was super successful as a youngster and getting to go over there and play, getting signed by the Padres and having a great minor league career with the Padres. I think for a time there he got called up to AAA for a little while there, which is really cool. Mm-hmm. So obviously he had that full season kind of opportunities that I didn't quite get, which is really cool for him. Where I went through the college route and, both coming home and getting to play in the ABL. I definitely think without the ABL, for myself personally, I don't get to be that super sub in the World Baseball Classic, and I don't get to play in the Premier 12, which is eventually where the scouts saw me for the LG Twins when I pitched against the Korean team in Taipei. So I definitely think without the ABL, after the ABL, I probably don't play after college. So I think it's definitely given me to where I am.
How does the level compare, ABL to KBO? Obviously, KBO is a big 3 league in the world, but I mean, we've had some pretty good KBO players come and play in the Australian Baseball League. Some pretty good Japanese players come and play in the Australian Baseball League. Obviously, there's a bit of a range in the ABL, but what does the level kind of compared to a KBO batter versus an ABL batter?
I think the KBO is probably a bit more consistent in terms of the lineup depth. I think the top end of the Australian league lineups are going to be really aggressive and going to be really great at making adjustments. And I think, you get to the point where the really great hitters in the ABL make adjustments in the middle of at-bats. And the bottom end of the lineup maybe doesn't quite make adjustments at all throughout a game. Where with the KBO, everyone's going to make an adjustment. There's a lot more data in the KBO than we kind of have access to in the ABL. They have, every inning there's print-offs of what happened last inning. There's iPads of, every pitch that got thrown in that thing, every inch of movement, every profile. It's pretty full on. So that they're going to have exactly what you just did to them, and they're going to know that I'm not going to get beat again the same way. So there's definitely everyone in the whole lineup is making adjustments at bat to at bat, and the best hitters are making adjustments pitch to pitch. Where in the ABL, it's just the top end of the guys are making adjustments from at bat to at bat, in my opinion.
Well, no, we are certainly hoping that the Australian contingent in international baseball grows, and there's a sense that potentially in the next couple of years it will grow within Korea because of this sort of new Australasian import rule that it looks like will come in the next couple of years. Tell us what you know about it. I mean, some of the details seem a little bit murky. We know it'll kick in next year, but just tell us a little bit about what you know about this new Australasian import rule that's going to come into the KBO and maybe how it can potentially aid Australian players.
Yeah. So what I know about the Australasian quota, or whatever they want to call it, is that so every team will have a 4th import slot. So currently now it's 3 imports regardless. Those imports in the first season can earn a maximum of $1 million US, and if they come back a second season, then it's uncapped. And then for the Asian quota, because it's not meant to go out there and bring in another huge name, it's supposed to go out there and basically bolster a roster and give the Korean youth a bit more time to develop. Basically, what the teams are finding is, and what I've spoken to the LG Twins about, is the best minor leaguers aren't quite ready to make that jump and be full-time KBO players yet. So they're kind of picking and choosing some Australian players or some independent players or industrial players from Japan or China, Taiwan, to come and bolster these rosters and be guys that they can use straight away. And give the minor leagues more time to develop in a comfortable situation rather than bringing them up and down, where sometimes they get up and have a bad outing and then get a bit demoralized and go down and struggle a little bit. And basically to stop the roller coaster ride of minor leaguers and really bringing them up once they're ready and once they're capable of taking on that role. I know with the Asian quota thing, it's about, I think it's 200,000 US for the first year. And then if you get brought back every year, I think it can increase 100,000 US a year. But
take it.
Goddamn right.
Decent.
But I think there's a couple of caveats in there. Like, I don't think you can come from the CPBL. I think you can't come from the MPB, and I don't think you can come from an independent league or affiliated ball in the US. So there's a couple of caveats there, and I think that they'll flesh themselves out throughout. The first year. I think the independent ball thing is a bit of an issue because without the independent ball, then you don't quite have, like, that's kind of the same area of independent ball in Japan and industrial league in Japan where they're allowed to take from there. So that's a bit wishy-washy, especially for Australians. If they want to get the experience to have a full season, then they need to go and play independent ball in the US, like a Rixion, like Glendenning,
Robbie.
Yeah, exactly. Like those like a Billy Parsons who's been going over there and playing for the minors.
Matt Beattie, those kind of guys, yeah.
Exactly, yeah, Aaron Whitefield type even.
Yeah, exactly. Guys who are out there kind of doing it. But then you got to think too, like, how does it work in terms of guys like Lewis Thorpe, who played in Puerto Rico and I think he's playing in Mexico again this year.
He is.
How does that work for those guys? Because I'd love to see 10 Aussies in this league. I'd love.
Yeah, I think we all would.
If I get this opportunity to go and play with the LG Twins and take this role next year, I'd love every time I'm playing a team, I can go talk to one of my mates from back home. I'd love that.
Go strike out Rickson.
Yeah, easier said than done.
Yeah, good luck. Well, I think what it does is it opens up a new market potentially as well. Eric and I have talked about this on air, off air ad nauseum, is that I think the Australian baseball public is thirsting for some sort of English coverage of an Asian league to get through this long period. Obviously, Major League Baseball is going through this long period of off-season, quote unquote, in the Australian baseball calendar. But if you could have primetime games with Australian players being broadcast in English, all of a sudden it opens up an entirely new market for Korea. Whether or not that's part of their thinking or that's just kind of a product of adding this type of rule in, I certainly think that it could be a byproduct of success, that, something that it could potentially lead to down the path if they get this rule right.
I also think that obviously there's 10 available contracts. I think it's going to create a bunch of competition within the ABL, within our top local guys to be the best they can, to, for lack of a better term, take a job from another guy. It gives that opportunity for the guys in the ABL that want these opportunities and are able to take them to go out there and show their stuff and showcase their stuff. And the ABL is going to be a vital piece to showing these clubs, these KBO clubs, what they can do and how they can perform, and to leading into kind of when it's contract time at the postseason, the ABL leading into the new year before spring training. It's a perfect time to showcase high-level Australian baseball to try and get these spots.
Now, you're not the first Australian to go to Korea. There's a bit of a history of Australians going over there, particular Sydney guys going over to Korea. Chris Oxspring comes to mind. He played for the LG Twins. He's a legend in Korea. He went back a few years. Did you talk to any other Australians who had played in Korea before going over there, just being like, hey, what's it like, and use them as a sounding board?
Yeah, I think so. Luckily for me, Oxspring was the bullpen coach for the Blue Sox this year. So the day I found out, I went to Oxspring and confided to him, and kind of just worked with him and spoke about everything. And he's been a great asset for me through this whole time, kind of just bouncing things off him and giving him updates and news. And he's such a big supporter of mine. I'm so lucky to have Oxy in my corner, because not only do I get to be around him at the Blue Sox, but in club ball, me and Oxy play for the same club in the summer and the winter. So I'm
Is he
super
still
lucky.
playing?
He's I think this was his last year with the in-state league. So he kind of told the boys after the game when we ended up losing the championship this year. But it's been I've been so fortunate and so lucky to be around Ox Spring near on year round for the last 3 or 4 years, because he's a great tool and he helps me so much, both mentally and mechanically, both pitching wise. So he's been such a great resource. And another guy I've been reaching out to is Warwick Soppold, one of the captains of Team Australia, because he's been such a help for me in terms of just mindset and being an older guy on the Australian team that I can kind of look up to and bounce ideas around. And he's always there to support me, and he reaches out to me. I can reach out to him. It's a great two-way communication between me and Warwick, and it's something that I am truly grateful for as well.
I know it's probably
Yeah,
been
Warwick's-
10 years or so since he played for Sydney, but is Dae-Sung Koo still around the Blue Sox at all? Have you had much to do with Dae-Sung Koo? I think he's still in Sydney. I think he's still running around Sydney in some
Did he
capacity.
pitch for Sydney like last year?
Well, he pitched for Geelong, Korea a couple years ago. He last pitched for Sydney
In a game, yeah.
2015. He's 50. Look, he's 55 years old, and you'd probably still back him to go out and get 3 outs if you needed to be honest.
Yeah, he's a legend. He doesn't play in the Sydney League anymore. Funnily enough, after I got the call saying that they were going to fly me out, just while we were kind of working through some particulars and giving a couple of days for me to sort my life out before I got on a plane and flew to Korea, me and my one of my best friends and bullpen catcher back home and club ball catcher back home, Jack Dormer, we were playing catch at the local field down by our place, down by where he lives, and we were house sitting for my partner's mum. And that's the area that Koo lives, and he walks his little dog around. And anyways, he popped by while we were playing long toss, sat in the dugout and did his thing. And then as soon as we were finished, he got up and left. Didn't hang around to say hello, like we know him and we've played on the same team with each other. But as soon as it was done, then he got up and left. And he's a bit of an enigma, you know. He's definitely his own thing, and he'll go to the beat of his own path. And he's an interesting guy, but someone I've had a bit of experience with in the past, and he's a great asset too.
I've got a couple more particulars about just the journey before we get to some fan questions, but it's really about a couple nuanced things in terms of the actual particulars and you getting there. So you did spring training in Arizona, that's right?
Yep, in Arizona.
Meanwhile, you were working for Baseball New South Wales, which were hosting another Korean team who were doing spring training at the ballpark and the office that you work at, and you were taking leave from that to go to go play baseball in Arizona for another KBO team, just in this confusing web of whatever. But what is the situation like? Like, where do you live? What fields are you at? What are you actually doing in Arizona? Because this is at the same time as MLB spring training, and I've never been to Arizona, so and you've been there plenty of times. I don't know what the particulars are like in terms of field availability and in the environment that you're in a KBO setting.
Yeah, so we were in Scottsdale, so we were put up in this nice hotel in a nice area of Phoenix, and we were practicing out of the old Angels complex, which is, can't quite remember the name of the field, but it's the old Angels complex, and it's owned and run by the city of Scottsdale now. So there's 3 fields there. There's a weight room. There's a huge locker room. It's kind of everything we kind of need to go in and get our work in. So that's, and we wake up, we have breakfast, we catch the bus, we work out on the field, we work out in the gym, we have lunch, we play scrimmage games or live at bats, shower up, go home, team dinner, things like that. Kind of just what you'd expect out of an everyday spring training environment. But because it's a long haul to Arizona instead of a spring training in Korea where it's snowing, they don't take all of the players. They take, I think there was 60 players there out of, I think 90 or something that they have. So a couple of the players who were injured stayed home. A couple of the older guys who didn't quite go, or some of the guys who were still working out contracts didn't come over. But for the most part, everyone who went over from the big league squad is still on the big league roster today. And then you got a couple of the young minor league guys who are kind of fighting for spots, trying to go up and down. And a couple of the younger guys who are like rookies or just cutting their teeth and just going with the flow and being a part of it and taking the opportunity. But then you add on the support staff, like all of the coaching staff, all of the training staff, all of the bullpen catchers and the clubbies and BP throwers, and it's a pretty full on operation, and it's a big ordeal. The LG Twins are great, and the travel manager's amazing, and everyone took care of everything. So.
But then spring training ends, you go back to Sydney, and you had been working for a few years as the state development officer at Baseball New South Wales, which is pretty much a role. I mean, you're working with and developing young and youth baseball players, high-level players. The women's team you were working with as well, but a lot of those emerging players that are coming through a baseball hotbed in Australia, in New South Wales. For those listening, that's the home of Travis Bazzana and the likes of Brent Iredale, names you're hearing a lot of lately. But you actually were leaving that job at the end of March for a role. Was it in Canberra? Or where were you? Where was your new job?
It's going to be in Homebush with the New South Wales Institute of Sport.
Right.
Yeah.
In sports still.
In sports still, yeah. Still sports administration and sports coordination with athletes and kind of moving away from an on-field. So my role with Baseball New South Wales was half on-field, half off-field. And kind of taking a career step and kind of moving towards all off-field coordination. But yeah, then about 2 weeks before I'd kind of just started and doing some onboarding stuff, and then I got the call from the Twins that they wanted me to go over, and yeah, so it's everything's been put on hold for a little bit while I come over and do this thing.
Sorry, I can't start work. I'm going to go be a professional baseball player in Korea. Oh, okay.
Exactly.
Decent excuse.
Yeah.
I'm sure an institute of sport would be more understanding than most places in terms of those opportunities as well. No, that's really exciting. And now you're there. You were pitching. We've got a couple fan questions that kind of tie into some ones we want. We're going to start with one from the biggest fan of the show, Spoon. Now, we talked a lot about how in the last episode about the Korean baseball trials, a few new things. I like that they're not afraid to try different systems, formats. But one of the ones was the automated ball strike system. What is that like, and how does that change things as a pitcher? And had you experienced anything like this before?
So I hadn't experienced. This is my first time dealing with the ABS. I know in the States, this spring training, they challenged the ABS challenge system. This is full on ABS. If every single pitch is coming through an earpiece, and when it gets quiet enough, you can hear it.
Really?
So, like when I had a minor league outing before I made my start in the big leagues, and that's obviously a smaller stadium and about 23,500 less fans, so you can definitely hear it a lot better. But it's kind of the way it works is it's all based off percentages of your total height. So they zone in the left and right in a shadow zone. So if it just touches the zone, then it's good. But if it completely misses, it's obviously a ball. And then they zone in height. So it's about, I believe it's like 22.334% of your height is the bottom zone. So it's just below your knee bone, more or less. And then I believe it basically comes up to halfway between your belt and your elbow, but in terms of percentage. So it's definitely something that they've broken down, and they're adjusting. They adjusted it this year compared to last year as well. So they kind of brought in that shadow zone where if it just touches, it's a strike. Where last year I think it had to be like half a ball, or they're just being a bit more easing on the shadow zone. And then the rule with it is it has to cross the front of the plane and the back of the plane of the plate. So it can't kind of cut a corner. So like or like a front door cutter or a back door slider isn't gonna get you a call. Even though it's a perfect executed pitch, it's not going to get the result unless you get a swing out of it. If that kind of makes sense.
So that I would think, Coen, that has to change the way you pitch, particularly maybe with 2 strikes. I mean, swing and miss stuff, I suppose, would be very similar, but probably with 2 strikes when you're trying to fool a guy or get a backdoor pitch or a front door breaking ball, and you're not going to get it sweeping around to the plate, whereas you can get that, a catcher that frames it well. You can fool an umpire every now and again with that. That has to change your sequencing, I would imagine.
Yeah, I think it definitely changes the way you kind of look at it and going for those strikeout pitches. So like, I'm always someone who's gonna, if I'm way ahead in the count, and like if it's no ball 2 strikes, then yeah, I'll expand the zone. But I know as soon as it gets to 2-2, I'm coming back in the zone. It doesn't mean I'm throwing a fastball for a strike, but it means I'm coming into the zone.
Interesting.
So it definitely kind of takes away, and maybe you got to be a little less okay with throwing such a big breaking ball. But guys will swing and miss at good pitches regardless. Like if you execute a pitch in the exact spot, if you execute your pitch, strikeouts will happen. If the pitcher swings at it or not. If the hitter swings at it or not. If you execute good pitches, that's getting a strikeout. So
the other one Spoon had was about the playoff format, which we kind of went through. It's like a gauntlet almost is how I would describe it. Effectively, 5 plays 4 in a series. The winner goes and plays the 3 seed. The winner of that series plays the 2 seed. The winner of that plays the 1 seed, which means if you finish first place, then you go straight to the championship series, the Korea series it's called, and it's a 3-week break of baseball. What do Korean players think of not playing baseball for 3 weeks was basically the question that was on offer. I kind of like the system. It's kind of intriguing, but yeah, that I know from dealing with ABL teams in the past when there used to be a bye to the championship series, that was always a big issue was, hey, we're not playing baseball for 10 days. That takes you out of rhythms. It busts up streaks. You might have been on an 8-game hit streak and all of a sudden you haven't played baseball in 10 days. You can see why there would be some, from a hitting side of things, especially why some concerns. So did you have a chance to chat to anybody about if they like this system or not?
Yeah. So I spoke with the pitching captain, Im Chang-yu, about it. And he said that because it is a long season, it's 140 games, that the team doesn't find it frustrating at all. They welcome the break, and it gives them all the prep time and all of the rest time to make sure that any small, reoccurring injuries or some niggles get sorted out. Everyone's at full rest. Everyone's rearing to go. They play plenty of live at bats. They play games against minor league teams. They play scrimmage games. The team does a good job in organizing things to do, but they also welcome the rest and welcome being prepared for because after waiting 3 weeks, you're itching and fighting and ready to go. So I think they welcome that, and it's not frustrating to them. Which I think in the ABL over a 40-game season, it's a sprint, right? And you have that week off, and it can really throw you out of whack. Over a 140-game season, I'm sure the rest is pretty. They're pretty happy about it. So.
Well, I mean, and let's hope that you get the opportunity potentially to pitch in a Korea series, Coen. But like personally, how do you think you would feel about it? I mean, the LG Twins at the moment, top of the table in Korea. If the season were to end today, the LG Twins would have that long break. You as a starting pitcher, how do you think you would feel about it? Obviously, having never done it before, but 3 weeks off when, the baseball players are creatures of habit, whether or not you'd like to think that time off is a good thing or not. Getting out of that routine, and this is oftentimes why you can see, those 5 and 6 seeds in Major League Baseball make runs, because they're the ones that want to keep playing baseball. Oftentimes, they've had a hot August, September that has allowed them to even get into October, so they want to continue to play. Whether those teams that, finish at the top of a table are oftentimes they've been there the entire year. Maybe they do have some niggles. They want to have that time off. But you personally, how do you think you would handle it, taking 3 weeks off and then being thrust into a championship series?
Yeah, I think just because it's different towards us, I think it'd be something that would take some getting used to. But if they're able to set up live at-bats against my own players and set up games against minor leaguers, like as long as I'm still able to be active and get high-intent workload in, I think I'd be okay with it. Obviously, if it was just 3 weeks of nothing and just practice and bullpens, and then it would be a bit of a worry. But if I can get on and like, without saying anything to the other teams, if you come first, you probably got a pretty good lineup. So if you're getting to practice against the best lineup in the league, then I'm sure you're going to find some success against a maybe lesser lineup. So
Same with the pitch. I guess on the other end, if you're in first place, you probably got pretty good pitchers. So if you're a batter, you're probably getting some good work in if you're doing some live ABs of the like or whatever you're looking at. Next question here is from Sarah, and it is a question more about the life outside of baseball in Korea. So she was wondering more about everything from what the social situation is like, how many people speak English, who do you hang out with, what kind of food do you cook? Is it all just baseball all the time? Do you have a support network outside? There was a few questions in there, but the gist of it is, what is the social and eating situation like?
Yeah, no. So the social aspect is pretty good. I think a lot of the players on the team speak decent English, and those who don't speak English, we have a great translation team with the LG twins, between Chi, David, and Jongmin. Like whenever I need something, or whenever I need to talk to a teammate, then we can have a conversation. And if those guys aren't around, then I could rely on some of my closer friends who speak pretty good English, like Wu Chan or Sunny. Couple of pitchers who I met and got close with in Scottsdale, and we can kind of use them to work around the language barrier. So, after the games, going out to eat, or, hanging out before the games and just hanging out in the clubhouse or in the dugout, in the bullpen, it's definitely like the social side is really good. There's never an awkward moment between us, even though sometimes we've got to talk kind of hopscotch through a person, but it's never awkward and everyone is really cool. And at the end of the day, no matter where you are, baseball players are all pretty similar. We're all different characters compared to regular people. But we all like to have fun. We all like to make jokes. We're all serious when we need to be serious. We can all talk business when we want to talk business. And then kind of the cultural aspect and the eating aspect, I'm really lucky to be in this suburb, or kind of famous or infamous, whatever you look at it. But I'm in Gangnam, which is the city that's that Psy sings about in the
Gangnam Style.
Exactly. So it's a very western city with a lot of food options around me. So walking distance to everything. I can catch the subway to go anywhere I want. There's plenty of Korean restaurants around where they speak English. If not, there's tablets that I can change to English. Or there's some Western restaurants that I can go to and eat there and be pretty familiar with the menus and things like that. And then going to grocery stores, I can whip out my phone and translate anything that I need to. Everything in terms of culturally and socially is really working for me. And it's not something that I feel like I'm ever out of place or a hindrance or like I'm lost.
Quite literally, two more questions before we let you go in this fan segment here. One from Hugh about why Korean baseball, exploring that element over indie ball, like we've seen a lot of Australians do. I know you touched on it before, but we got to get Hugh's question.
Yeah, no, of course. I think independent ball is a great resource for some people. I just don't think that it kind of fit where my life was at. With coming home from university after 4 years and kind of working with a job, and I just bought an apartment with my partner, and I don't think independent ball was quite right for me. But I think this opportunity and the Korean baseball organization, and I think it's something that if I can make it work, is sustainable. Where I don't think independent baseball, unfortunately, is quite sustainable in terms of a career path. And that's kind of what it comes down to. And that's kind of why when this opportunity I jumped on it rather than opportunities that have come up through indie ball where I've kind of passed them.
Yeah, I mean, and all due respect to independent baseball, it certainly has its place in the spectrum of baseball. But I mean, independent baseball would largely be a stepping stone that a lot of people potentially could use to get to a Korean league. So I certainly think that it makes sense as a career path for you. Our last one for you, Coen, comes from Kate, and it's something that you touched on briefly earlier as well. But just talk a little bit about how coaching and starting to go into that realm, getting into the mind of a coach, has evolved you as a player, because oftentimes it can be difficult to wear both hats. You take one off, put the other one on, but it's almost like at times you're teaching yourself or you're learning lessons as you're teaching others. So maybe just let us know how starting to get into that coaching role that you had at Baseball New South Wales has evolved you as a pitcher.
Yeah, I
It's a cool
think
question from Kate.
very good question. Yeah, no. I think being able to work with some of these young and up and coming guys, really, I'm very grateful to do that. And I think that's definitely that was the best part of the job, is getting to be hands on with these young guys and kind of show them and help them on their journey. Um, I think one of the biggest things for me from being a coach's point of view is passing on the knowledge that I've gotten from my coaches. I was super, super lucky to have some great resources whilst I was in the US, in terms of, plenty of former major leaguers that have coached me, or guys who have, Coach Stankiewicz, who was my head coach at Grand Canyon University, was the 18U manager of the USA. He's managed collegiate teams. He's played for 4 different big league organizations. He was pretty high up in the farm director scouting kind of realm with the New York Yankees. And I'm super lucky and he's now the head coach at the University of Southern California. He hit me with so many life lessons and so many eye-opening experiences through the realm of baseball. And if I can pass back 30% of what I learned from Coach Stankiewicz back to Australian players, I know that it's going to be such a great experience for them, and it's going to help them along their journey. And I think, these young guys are so hungry, and that kind of helps feed my hunger as well, being around that environment. And these young guys are fresh and new, and they don't know what they're about to get into and what life is going to lead for them. So if I can help to calm them down and give them the advice that I had 4 years ago when I was in the US, that advice is now ringing true to me now. And the advice that I'm passing on to them is helping me in my current situation when things are uncertain and things are new. Like, one of the biggest things that Coach Stankiewicz has told me, and I'll never forget this, is if you get an opportunity, you grab that thing with 2 hands, you don't let it go. And that's what I'm planning to do with this opportunity in Korea.
That feels like a perfect bow on the end of what's been a great chat with you, Coen. Thanks for sticking around and sharing some insights for it. I'm sure we could talk for a whole day, and I'm sure we will at a small Fuchu ramen joint sometime, hopefully in the near future. But Coen, really, thank you for joining us. Best of luck. We're all LG Twins fans now, I think, in Australia. So that was a pretty cool insight on a very whirlwind experience for you in the last 4 months.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thanks for having me on. Thank you, Andrew. It's been a great chat, and I'm looking forward to catching up with you guys.
Keep the arm fresh, though, Coen. We need you in Sydney this Australian summer. Keep the arm fresh. Don't pitch too much up there.
No, of course. No, I wouldn't miss the Blue Sox season. Don't worry about it.
You can follow the LG Twins on Instagram and YouTube. They put out great content. That seems to be king for Korean content. Baseball.com.au will have some Coen Wynne coverage as usual. But best of luck, Coen, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, guys. Thank you.